Okay, everyone, this is my dad, Todd Griffin, and he knows a lot about our family ancestry, so he's going to talk about it on both sides, my mom and obviously his side of the family. So, Dad, the first question is, where did our family come from?
Um, so on my mom's side of the family, the Cordells came from originally from France and Germany, and they went to Russia in the 1700s. They're called Germans from Russia because different from the United States, Russia was giving away free land. You didn't have to pay taxes and you didn't have to serve in the army. So a lot of people went to Russia in the 1700s. They stayed about 100 years, and then when they had to start paying taxes and serve in the army, they left and came to America and went to Kansas area, and they're called Germans from Russia, and obviously some French. My dad's side of the family came over to the United States very early on and landed around Williamsburg, and we have people's grandparents' names in the church in Williamsburg, and they fought in the Revolutionary War and actually knew George Washington. And then they went to Virginia, Kentucky, and down south. And the other side of the family appeared in Richmond in the 1700s and kind of migrated south from Richmond to North Carolina to South Carolina to Alabama to Mississippi.
So, what about mom's side?
Mom's side of the family is all Germans. They came over in the I think 18 and 1900s and settled in Pennsylvania area, and they were tailors and shopkeepers, I think.
Okay, so how do you know all of that?
So on my side of the family, my dad's side from Virginia and down through Richmond and everything, we have a lot of letters and information that's been passed down from generation to generation. And on my mom's side, they would write everything in the Bible. So we have it from there, and then I talked to grandparents, and I actually did a lot of research to find the town where they were from in France and Germany, and have actually made contact with relatives in France and Germany.
Gotcha.
And all the churches have the information over there, so if you just find the church, they can tell you all the other information.
Okay, so how many generations can you trace back on your side and on mom's side? And if you have any specific names, important people, places of birth, or birthdays, include that too.
Say that again.
How many generations can you trace back from your parents, mom's side of the family, and do you have any like important names of big people maybe we're related to, places of birth or birthdays?
So on my side of the family, on my mom and dad's side, I've been able to trace all my grandparents, essentially all of my grandparents, from current all the way back to when they almost first arrived in the United States. And I actually try to visit each of those places. And my dad's side came over very early and were able to trace them back. Your mom's side, her dad did a little research, so we know from that. But also, in talking with her parents, we know they came from Pennsylvania and were tailors and things like that.
Do you know any specific names of people related to that are important?
Well, so on an early, if you came to the United States early and landed anywhere before the Revolutionary War, you're pretty much related to everybody because there weren't very many people here. So on my dad's side, we have ties to just about all the Revolutionary War people. There's a book that says George Washington met Martha Washington at my grandfather's house in Virginia. So Patrick Henry.
All right. So I know you're a veteran, but who else do you know in our family, in mom's side and your side, that's veterans?
There are a lot of veterans from on both sides of the family, and they've served all the way from Vietnam to World War One, World War Two, World War One, Confederate War. A lot of our family was farmers in the South during the Confederate War, so they weren't on the right side of that war. Civil War, Civil War and the Revolutionary War, we were heavily involved in.
What about ranks? Do you know like what your dad was and like what you were and maybe Pappy and etc.
We've been all ranks from enlisted to officers, and your grandfather on your mom's side was a Marine officer in Vietnam. I was an officer and enlisted, and it goes all the way back. A lot of enlisted, but in the Civil War and Revolutionary War, they were officers, and one of them was one of the guys responsible for equipping the Revolutionary Army, and we have letters from him to George Washington about getting more supplies for the army.
Can you tell me some stories or interesting things you know about your family?
Well, I think on my mom's side, it's interesting that, we want to think that everybody came to America, but not everybody did come to America early on. A lot of people went, there's a huge segment of the population called Germans from Russia. They mainly settled in the U.S. out west. But instead of coming to America and having to buy land, and in the 1700s, they stayed in Europe and went to Russia, and they got land for free. They didn't have to pay taxes. You didn't have to serve in the army. And mainly when that ended in the mid-1800s, they came to America. And if they didn't, they all were exterminated by the Russians during World War II because they were Germans, even though had been living in Russia for 100 years.
Gotcha.
Interesting stories. Our family that came to America early, we have published accounts of them fighting Indians in Virginia in the 1700s. And then a lot of them died in the Civil War. And one of them, his wife was related to Abraham Lincoln's wife, and they visited him at the White House right before the Civil War.
Okay, so do you have any genealogical records that are passed down from you, and where are they, and how did you get them?
We have a lot of information. On my dad's side, several generations back, they actually started tracing their genealogy. So they have word of mouth that's been written down, so we know that. And we've also been able to trace it through genealogy, Ancestry.com. My mom's side of the family, we did a lot of records that were in Bibles and everything. And then, like I said, I found out where they were from, and I started emailing the churches, and I actually got the church to write me back and say, yes, they have their birth records from the 1800s. And then I got a trunk with a whole bunch of letters and documents that are 100 to 200 years old.
Gotcha. Thank you.